Hey, John,
Hey, Nick,
how are you?
I'm fine. I'm in cool Oklahoma. You're in
Yeah,
steamy Wales. I can see the steam coming off the back behind you,
it
whatever.
it really is subtropical. Or to us pasty-faced Englishmen, it seems subtropical here right now. So,
Did you put that hat underwater so it'll just drip down through this thing? Little ice pack underneath your
yeah.
hat.
Well, the nice thing about the old Panama is it does create a layer of insulation over over your skull. It does cool you down a little bit. Not as much as I would like. What I'd really like is to put my bare toes into that lake behind me if there was any water in it.
Ah, yeah, I'm sorry. Oklahoma is the capital of drought. I mean, we are Dust Bowl Central. Not anymore because we're draining the aquifer underneath us. That's the only reason we're not a dust bowl.
Ah,
Um, shh. Oklahoma's dirty secret. Anyway, um, what are we here for, Nick?
so
What
we,
what what
we we thought
what are the claims?
we've done so well with J.K. Rowling's works. We thought we would expand the franchise and look at the work of Messrs. Thorne and Tiffany, and I guess compare it and contrast it with J.K. Rowling's own work. I'm being frivolous, of course. We're going to look at the script of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, and you can see that the very large print J.K. Rowling, but it's based on a story from Rowling, Tiffany, and Thorne, and it's a script by Jack Thorne.
So today we'll be talking about a play written by Jack Thorne.
Yeah, and amazing. The printed script went straight to the top of all the bestseller charts. If you believe the Amazon reviews, largely fueled by people that didn't realize that Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, the play script, was going to be a play script.
And this is certainly due to Rowling's soundbite that this was the eighth Harry Potter novel.
Yeah.
Maybe she said story, so that, but it's the eighth Harry Potter book, and there was I was in Oklahoma City at the time, and there was a Midnight Madness, release. Um, anyway, Nick, this is tough for me. All I know about Jack Thorne, I don't like.
Yeah.
The stuff he did with Black Hermione, because that wonderful actress wasn't the best actress for the job. Thorne says she was the best black actress, and I had to have a black actress, a person of color for this. That's just so
I'm going to talk.
demeaning
I'm
to
going to talk a
her
little
and
bit. Yeah, I'm going to talk
uh,
a little bit about
please.
Doomsway, and
But I
I know.
just want to explain my pained expression as I
Yeah,
hold this book, which I have not opened in a very long time. It's just you know Jack Thorne is going to be forgotten.
yeah,
He'll be a footnote maybe in because the play set records is still setting records
yeah,
globally, and it's still being rewritten by him. Now it's under 3 hours now in the
yeah.
traveling version, and there's a high school version which can't be 3 hours. So it's it's based on an original new story, right, by J.K. Rowling, but the remnants of that story.
Well, it's based on a story from all three of them. So the story is Rolling's, Thorns, and Tiffany's.
Yeah, and sadly, at one point in one of her interviews, I'm sorry, these are things you probably you're going to cover, but she said it was all of them were comprehensive educated.
Yeah.
There's not an Oxbridge St. Andrews person in the
No.
in the crew, and I was sort of like, yeah, well that shows, I mean it's reflected. Um, anyway, I mean here I yeah. Exeter
So
snob or whatever. That's it's just like, yeah, honey, you went to a comprehensive school.
so this came out in the summer of 2016, just a little while before the first Fantastic Beasts one. But I want to take us back in time a little bit to how it happened. What is the moment that caused this to come into existence? And I'm going to take us back to the autumn of 2013. So we've had the last of the Harry Potter films. Robert Galbraith has been revealed as being J.K. Rowling. And then at her Edinburgh office, not a house, but her office in Edinburgh, she accepts a meeting from Sonia Freeman and Colin Callender. Now, Sonia Freeman is a big theatre producer on both sides of the Atlantic. Colin Callender is an entertainment impresario across lots of different media, but these are big hitters. Now, we know, because Rowling's talked about it on the years leading up to this, she has been pitched Harry Potter the Musical, Deathly Hallows on Ice. You name it, she has been pitched it. Because, you know, after that last film in 2012, I think it was a license to print money. You know, you could have done almost anything with Harry Potter in the title and you would have made money. So these two big entertainment bigwigs rock up to see. First of all, they must have got through all the gatekeepers. I'm imagining Neil Blair, and they managed to get a 3-hour meeting with J.K. Rowling, and they persuade her to start work on a stage play. How did they do it? What was their secret? And I think I can reveal to the public out there, they did it by not pitching Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. So if I read the original press release, and this was, so the meeting was in autumn, this press release was sent out in December 2013. Producers Sonia Freeman and Colin Callender will produce the production. Over the years, I've received countless approaches about turning Harry Potter into a theatrical production, but Sonia and Colin's vision was the only one that really made sense to me, and which had the sensitivity, intensity, and intimacy I thought appropriate for bringing Harry's story to the stage. Rowling said in a statement, after a year in gestation, it's exciting to see this project moving to the next phase. So, to be clear, the producers initially saw this as an intimate character drama, not a big production, not an adventure driven by narrative and action. And here's a quote: "We wanted to think about this as a play that could actually first be seen at the Royal Court Theatre, a small theatre. A real proper play," Callender explains. "At the same time, we kept coming back to this idea that we were never going to be able to compete with the big visuals of the movies." He adds, "Our intent really was to explore the psychological, emotional landscape of Harry." So you may remember it, the very initial press stories, it was going to be essentially a prequel. It's going to be about Harry Potter living in a cupboard, you know, and this is that kind of intimate theatre is very British fringe, and I think you get it in sort of Broadway fringe as well. Small scale, intimate productions. It's all about the character and the emotion and the dialogue. Think Waiting for Godot. That's not what they come out with at the end.
Really? This Cursed Child is not Rosencrantz and Guildenstern? I mean,
Yeah. So initially, the initial pitch was for J.K. Rowling was going to collaborate on a stage play about the young wizard's life before his arrival at Hogwarts. Then we get another.
We wind up with a Warner Brothers production.
Yeah.
Wow.
We get another press release May 2014. The production won't be a condensed run through of the epic saga of the books, but rather a focus on Harry's early years and the story of his parents, who are killed by Lord Voldemort when Harry is 15 months old. This was in the Daily Mail, who also said a leading choice of the director was John Tiffany, and they got that right. Then we get a venue. So we get them thinking about the Palace Theatre, and then
nice intimate, matchbox.
Yeah. And then fast forward to September 2015, and now we've got Thorne and Tiffany, and they're talking to the press. And Thorne's writing in September 2015. Obviously, I loved it when we decided to tell this story in two parts, because I get to spend more time with the characters, and what an honour that has been. It shares a scale and ambition with all the Harry Potter stories, so in order to do this justice, we have decided to present the play in two parts. He says they are anxious to respect the previous 7 stories, so we've moved from prequel to sequel, and hope people will love the play like they loved the books. And then it wasn't until October 2015, that's less than a year before they open, they've decided it's going to be 19 years later. That's going to be the opening scene. So we've got, when the pitch is made, it's not going to be about the money. It's not going to be, yes, use Harry Potter because you can make lots and lots of money. It's going to be about the theatre. It's going to be about the art and the character. And that's how they got rolling. Once they've got rolling and they start getting a crew together.
It's wonderful. I don't know if you mean they got her or whether they got rolling.
Well, they got both. So now I'm not saying that JK has been pushed and manipulated, although I think she has, but she has a major voice in this. She owns 50% of the company that is putting this on, and of course she's making a lot of money. But I think if they'd come in and said, we're not going to do an intimate character portrait. We're going to have a massive extravaganza, so big you got to buy 2 tickets to see it all. There's going to be fireworks and dancing, and Rowling wouldn't have taken the meeting. I think that was a strategy to get the meeting. Okay, and I also said I was gonna talk a little bit about a wonderful actress called Noma Dumezweni. Now I know Noma of old because she has done a lot of work, although she was never a superstar before Harry Potter. But she's done a lot of work on BBC Radio, on radio dramas, and it's one of the things that I do enjoy. I'm much more auditory than I am visual, so I can concentrate much better on a radio play than I can on a TV show or a movie. So I knew her work well, and I respected her extremely well. It was announced that she was going to be Hermione, and predictably, there was a backlash because in everyone's head, and I think it's natural as well, when you're reading a book set in Britain, unless they specifically mention a race, you assume white anyway. It received quite a backlash. There was J.K. Rowling came out and said, "Well, I never specified what colour." I mean, give or take a couple of passengers, she didn't. It wasn't a big part of Hermione's description. But a lot of the backlash was predictably nasty. Being the good socialist I am, I was very much bravo. I think she'll be brilliant, and she was utterly fantastic. She was nominated for a Tony. She actually won the Laurence Olivier Award in the West End for Best Supporting Actress, and it's hard to find a review which were universally glowing of the actual production of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. It's hard to find a review that doesn't mention how well she did. Brilliant bit of casting.
I'm gonna read you one. Yeah. But it's not her performance.
No.
It's the fact that the script, has a Hermione that never mentions a book.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just sort of like, this is not Hermione. Who is this? Excuse me.
But I do want to mention John Tiffany, because John Tiffany actually made me quite angry, and it takes quite a bit to make me angry, John, as you know.
Shut up, Nick.
So he had an interview about his role in the production, and he was questioned about the backlash. And I think first half of his response was fair enough. She's a brilliant actress, and she was great for the role. And then he said, I couldn't have put a production on in 2016 in London and have the 3 lead characters white. And I've got a problem.
You're saying that was Tiffany who said that? That was Thorne, yes. Wasn't it?
No, that was Tiffany.
Oh, I've been saying that was Thorne. My mistake. Apologies to Thorne. I thought that was that.
Let me double trouble check. Yes, Tiffany. So that was the director rather than the writer. The writer was Thorne. So I have a problem with that statement. Because here was I going, well, no, she's brilliant, Hermione. Why wouldn't you want Noma as a Hermione? And in effect, he was saying, well, she had to be black because we couldn't have 3 white people in there. Now, I understand positive discrimination, and I understand the reason and necessity for it. So I work in an industry that is very male dominated. And I also work in an industry, thank goodness, that still believes in the apprentice system. So every year we get young kids in from school who are maybe interested in an apprenticeship. And what we do is we try and find them role models to take them around my place of work, to get them interested in this as a career. Now, for many years, we didn't have a good female role model as an engineer or a technician or somebody working in a technical field. And we needed a role model. So when the guys were looking for new engineers and new technicians, if you were a woman, you had a much better chance of getting a foot in the door, because we needed those role models. What I would not have said if a group of school kids came round, I wouldn't have said, this is Jack, he's brilliant, he's been in this job for 5 years, he's already had 2 promotions, he really knows his stuff. And this is Emma, we had to have her because she's a woman. So it's understanding the need for it, understanding the justice for it, and there's coming out and saying, well, it's 2016, they can't all be white, rather than Noma is clearly a brilliant actress. She's got almost universal, apart from Thorne's script, almost universal acclaim in all of the reviews. Why wouldn't you want her in your production?
There was, but he then said also that all future Hermiones will be black, throwing a pall over all other actresses that are hired for the job that their diversity hires.
Well,
what a shame.
I mean, I have a little bit more sympathy for that. I think once you've got in the theatre going crowd's head an aesthetic for the 3 leads, if they were all 3 white, I could understand why you wouldn't want to suddenly change.
Okay, that's a good point. I'm gonna kick back on Tiffany's statement and your repetition of it, that these are the 3 leads. Harry, Ron, and Hermione are not the 3 leads of this play.
No.
I mean, she deserves the reward as supporting actress, because all Harry, Ron, and Hermione, they're all supporting actors and actresses. The leads are Albus, and Scorpius, and Delphi. That's the trio of this story. And so this whole thing about their being the leads, I'm like, well, okay, because they're recognizable and we know them. They may have a larger place in our attention and stuff like that, but the story's not about them.
No.
I mean, it's about Harry and Albus's relationship, whatever. But to say that, you know, it couldn't have the three leads on the stage all be white. Well, okay, then make Scorpius black. You know what I mean? But or Delphi black. You can't. You know, why does Hermione have to be black? Especially Hermione that doesn't like books. Anyway, I'm not gonna go there. It's
a thorny issue, and there's going to be a lot of different views out there. But I think I guess from my side, from a left-wing communist, I just plead with my fellow left-wing communists, just have a think about how what you say can affect the people that you're talking about. I do think how, and I mean, maybe she hasn't heard it, but if Noma heard that, how would that affect her, self-respect?
Yeah, woman accomplished in her field, recognized for her work, her the diversity of the roles that she's played and the voices that she's done in audio, and then to say, oh yeah, but we needed a black woman. This is already bleeding into Black Severus.
Yeah,
which is to me a much more credible and challenging decision than Black Hermione. Black Severus, especially if you can get a black serious black, so that you have two blacks on the stage that hate each other because they've made different decisions about their relationship to the majority culture. Wow, that's a powerful challenge to rereading of the text.
Yeah.
It's Snape somehow as conformist and black as a rebel, and it's or vice versa, that Sirius Black is the thing, and plus it makes his name hilarious, Sirius Black.
That's easily your most searched for and read article this year, I think, isn't it? I do hope you can add a link.
But we have the same situation that we have with the actress who played Black Hermione.
Yeah,
you have this phenomenal actor who is who's being dissed because Snape is not black in the books. I'm just like, wow, Snape is as black as you can get in the books in terms of his coloring, if you want, his vampiric nature.
Bat-like.
That's right. I mean, and he's the shadow. He's an anti-hero, and to have him in this white majority cast come in that already he's the thumb on the hand. Now this makes this visible in a very visual medium. Anyway, that's brilliant. But if you say, oh, we needed a black guy in the television show because it's 2025, really? I don't get it. I don't get it. But that's not the left-wing communist thing. That's just the American. Let's be colorblind and choose the best merits and this and that. And these people, that actress and that actor, they stand on their merits. Yeah. I don't need to have that. I needed a black character in there. Anyway, was that your lake? Was that your lake contribution?
That was my lake. You can't ask me to find J.K. Rowling's lake in somebody else's script, surely.
I think you've done yeoman service there in finding that how they manipulated her into doing the play, because that she didn't want Deathly Hallows on Ice, but that's what she got.
Yeah.
She got Deathly Hallows on Ice, and it's making her a lot of money, and it's kept the brand alive, and it closed the canon. I think if I were going to do the Lake Point, I would say Rowling's frustration about how people were fandom was moving the stories forward and taking over that thing, and I think she wanted to say there's an 8th Harry Potter book and it closes this thing down.
Yeah.
And certainly she chose a story that. Hogwarts Professor is like 7,000 posts on it now. I mean, we have a lot of posts up over our 20+ year run, and we've only done 2 pieces of fan fiction. One was a brilliant one by Louise Freeman, where Cormoran Strike is introduced to Harry Potter, where he reads the Harry Potter novels. I have to find that and put that link up. That's a great one. But the other one was right after Deathly Hallows came out, and I will put a link up to this in the underneath this video. There's links down there. I will put a link to the story that was written about Albus and Severus on the train. Albus and Scorpius on the train, and how they meet and how they basically agree that Albus will be, he's going to choose to be in Slytherin to help his friend Scorpius, and that it was so obvious that was the way to go, that this was written within weeks of the release of Deathly Hallows. And so when the Cursed Child thing comes out, we couldn't claim the credit, because I'm sure there are 1,000 fan fictions that are written right along the same lines. That Albus's initials are ASP. Not especially subtle that he's going to wind up in Slytherin, right? I mean, come on. That was clear. I'm not. You've done the yeoman's work with the Lake on this, and thank you. It was good to hear that. I hope in the critical biography we'll find out how we segued from the Matchbox Theater intimate psychological portrait of Harry and his psychological foundation, the Freudian family drama, to, I love it, Deathly Hallows on Ice, with Barney the dinosaur. I mean, it's just, all right. So, wow, am I showing all my prejudices? Sure. This is the internet. Well, I'm gonna punt.
You're among friends, John.
Yeah, the guy by the lake. I don't know what's out there. It's because people are going to be savaging me for this, but and rightly so. I deserve to be savaged. But I'm going to punt on this, Nick. I'm not going to give you my shed interpretation of this book, because it'd be a waste of time.
Yeah.
We have no idea other than the story. I mean, you could do a ring composition analysis, but I'm not going to waste my time, because only in the West End is the original play, and it's not the original play. They've morphed the play also so that we get the Albus Scorpius drama as a same-sex, adolescent experience. That isn't in the book. That isn't in the original script. But I guess because it's 2025, we had to go there, right? The book, the text that we have doesn't exist anywhere in the world today in terms of its performances. So what I want to talk, I'm going to have a review that was written by a man who was actually a professor of literature at a premier American university, Pepperdine in Malibu, California. His name is James Thomas. I podcast with him on our Potter Pundits thing at Leaky Cauldron. James is a very good friend of mine. Now retired. Now he lives in somewhere in flyover country. I hope he comes to Oklahoma City soon. He wrote 2 books. One was Repotting Harry Potter, Professor's Book by Book Guide for the Serious Rereader, which is really, there are three literary allusions books. There's My Harry Potter's Bookshelf. There's Repotting Harry Potter by James Thomas, in which he just catalogs all the references to books inside these books. And it's a fun, romping guide. It just blow your mind. And then there's Literary Allusion in Harry Potter by Beatrice Groves, which is the seminal work. I mean, really the really beginning of the third Generation Hex's arrival in Rowling studies. And then James also wrote Rowling Revisited, Return Trips to Harry, Fantastic Beasts, Quidditch, and Beetle the Bard. And that's really the only book that's been written that talks about the ancillary books, the textbooks, and Beetle the Bard, which, it's invaluable. Again, there's nothing else like it. Well, James was in England teaching a class on Harry Potter during his summer break from Pepperdine when Cursed Child, the play, started to be performed. And I asked him, I said, you are a premier Potter pundit, and you're right there in the UK. Can you write us a review of the script? Because he told me he wasn't going to go to the play. He had too much on his plate to go to London for a whole day. And I begged him, can you do this? And he agreed. And so I'm just going to read you this thing. I'll put a link to it if you want to be able to reference it. But the review is called, I don't know what it is, but it's not the 8th Harry Potter book. Anyway, this is James Thomas. A few weeks ago, I was teaching in London, only 3 miles from the theater where Harry Potter and the Cursed Child was to open. 10 or 12 of my students went to see the play, and 3 of them experienced a Rowling sighting. While I envied their having seen the presence, as John Granger calls her, I didn't regret missing the performance and didn't mind waiting a few more weeks to read the special rehearsal edition of the play. All my instincts and previous reading experience told me that whatever I was going to read by Jack Thorne wasn't going to be an 8th Harry Potter book, no more than the wretched Ghost Set of Watchmen is the second To Kill a Mockingbird. In fact, having just sailed on another voyage back through the 7 and only Potter books in my London class, I came away from the rough seas of Cursed Child a bit seasick. This was an exercise in anticlimax, not unlike reading Moby Dick and then encountering Free Willy, books that have only one thing in common: whether Harry or Wales can differ in every other conceivable way, in tone, depth, style, and overall literary worth. I'm certain that reading the play is a far cry from experiencing the wonders and pyrotechnics of the performance, but having read more than my share of plays, I can also testify that a good play can radiate power and come to life on the page without the bangs and smokes of the stage. About the bangs and smokes. Do you remember this gem from the Cave chapter of Deathly Hallows? Rowling writes, he had never seen a wizard work things out like this simply by looking and touching, but Harry had long since learned that bangs and smoke were more often the marks in ineptitude than expertise. I appreciate this contrast on a figurative level because I believe that we initially enjoy the Rowling books because of the bangs and smoke, and that later as rereaders we appreciate them for the looking and the touching. I also think of this passage when I try to explain why I'm less than enthusiastic about all film adaptations of great books, Rowling's included. Even Jack Thorne's words describing the special effects are indicative of the pyrotheatrics of his play. The words explodes, noise, whoosh, smash, flash, and bang occur over 20 times. Holy Batman! Remember sock, pow, bang, etc.? True, Aunt Marge doesn't float, and desserts don't splat in Cursed Child, and Thorne's noises and explosions are, in a dark context, and are matters of life and death. Yet they still seem to me more often the marks of ineptitude than expertise. Jo surely knows that many of her bangs and tricks are for kids, and she also gives us an abundance of looking and touching scenes. Jack doesn't give us much beyond all the bangs and smokes. Now James Thomas goes into the differences. He starts off with, my Harry is not a bad father. Early in Thorne's play, when Albus Severus is worried that he may be sorted into Slytherin, he pulls on his father's robes, and Harry looks down and speaks reassuring words. In Deathly Hallows, Harry offers similar reassurance, but only after he crouched down so that Albus's face was slightly above his own. Actions as well as words play a part in allaying a child's fears. And Thorne's Harry looks down on his sons, while Rowling's Harry, my Harry, our Harry, looks up to his son. Moreover, Thorne's Harry, seeing red, utters the awful words, well, there are times I wish you weren't my son. Harry can't believe he said that. Ginny can't believe he said that. I can't believe he said that. And I can't believe many playgoers or readers can believe he said that. So the line is, in my view, unbelievable, but not in the wow sense of the word, but in the not credible sense. It's like Hamlet saying to Claudius, I wish you and my mother well, and toasting to brighter days in Denmark. I wish Thorne had considered that we already know Harry is far from perfect before he made his Harry into England's worst father, childhood bedwetter, and pigeonophobe. In the Deathly Hallows epilogue, as the train bound for Hogwarts begins to pull away, Harry smiles but feels something like a little bereavement watching his son glide away from him. Thorne's Harry essentially tells Albus that being a father scares him so, and is so difficult because he had no father to use as an example of parenting. Nature trumps nurture for Rowling's Harry. Dursley-raised Harry himself had no experience or example to draw from to understand a parent's bittersweet farewell to a child, but he seems to have inherited all the skills and instincts he needs from James and Lily. It's not until perhaps these final pages of the final book that readers finally appreciate how much more than James' unruly hair and Lily's green eyes were passed on to their son. Point number 2, my Ron is not a buffoon. Thorne's Ron runs a joke shop. He lamely jokes with Lily, his favorite niece. He says things like, "Oi, droopy drawers," and every time I sit down now, I make an oof noise. He, as Albus Polyjuiced Ron, blocks Hermione with his hips and proposes they have another baby or go on holiday. He speaks sputtering nonsense to an alternate time Hermione in excruciatingly painful dialogue. Moreover, Ron points his wand the wrong way. He tells Draco he has really nice hair. And with these words, he agrees with Harry and Hermione that Delphi shouldn't be killed because the trio are not killers. Yeah, it's annoying, but it's what we learned. Overall, Jack Thorne gives Ron all the depth and dignity of Nick Bottom, and his painful scenes with the love of his life are reduced to Bottom's antics with Titiana. Did Jack really write that? As Emily Strand recently reminded us, Harrison Ford wondered how many actors could say some of the stuff, and stuff is not what he actually says, George Lucas wrote. Some of Thorne's stuff comes to mind, and I suppose we would all have our least favorite lines. Mine include Albus's assurance to Scorpius that his friend is kind from the depths of your belly to the tips of your fingers. Scorpius's neologism, engorge impressed. Scorpius's exclamation when seeing Matilda Bagshot, "Oh my, that's her! Wow! Squeak! My geekness is a-quivering." The description of silence as one that sits low, twists a bit, and has damage in it. And this other description of silence, there is a bang and a flash, and then silence. And then there's more silence. When I read that last line, I hear Ethel Merman in my head. There's no silence, like more silence, like no silence. I know. Another odd little matter involves a rather inexplicable preposition switch. Why is Hermione minister for magic? Will this become a trend? Will either Hillary Donald be elected president for the United States? Is Elizabeth Queen for England? Was Mary Queen for Scots? Now, this is actually funny because James forgets or neglects that actually was in the original book, right? They changed it to Minister of Magic for the Scholastic edition. But anyway, yes, of course, there is some magic. How could there not be? Dealing with Harry's saga, even in such a derivative way, Thorne or almost any writer familiar with and appreciative of the story must inevitably strike gold. Each reader or playgoer will have his or her favorites, and based on my own reading and comments from some of my students who attended the play, here are some memorable moments worthy of praise. James always says nice things. I've never heard him say a critical word about any person in my life. Anyway, Snape's few scenes and his willingness to sacrifice himself again. Ron and Hermione's kiss, despite alternative times having kept them apart as life partners. Harry and Draco's brief moment as friends rather than enemies. And most notably, James and Lily of necessity dying the sacrificial death once more, witnessed by those who love them and lament their loss most keenly. For many of us, such scenes alone, even 4 or 5 moments of gold, may mitigate the dross and prevent a total literary loss. But there is a review within the play. I think Jack Thorne may have unwittingly written his own review of his play within the play. Here are my top 5 unintentional self-descriptions of Cursed Child in Thorne's dialogue and stage directions. I'm assuming that explanations as to why I chose these lines and the commentary and the context are unnecessary for Hogwarts professor readers. I offer them in reverse chronological order for your consideration. I just don't want to see him like that. The man I love shrouded in the man I hate. The group are gathered and full of confusion. There's a slightly limp cheer. So I suppose it's only ourselves we've got to blame that you've turned out such a limp disappointment. And last, his hand is empty. It's a lame trick. Everyone enjoys its lameness. After Cursed Child, and that review within the review, I don't want my money back. I just want my Harry back. Don't you miss Harry? Doesn't a play wherein he's sort of a character make you miss him even more? If so, here's a recommendation, and it's free. Both the advice and the remedy for missing Harry. Pick up Sorcerer's Stone and start reading it all over again. I deeply appreciate Elizabeth Bayard Hardy for her comments on this matter in the revisiting instead of rehashing part of her piece on Cursed Child. My university teaching allows me to return to the blessed books on a regular basis. Again, next spring term, in fact. So I invite you to join me in spirit, though not in class, and return to the 4,100 pages paradoxically again, as if for the first time. As I wrote a few years ago, we've all felt the joy and the power of rereading a rich text, of reliving a story that resonates so deeply within us all, a story such as Harry's, that is both in our heads and real. When that story has ended and the book is done, and we must say goodbye to the characters we love and hate, we need to only say goodbye for the present, only until we open the book and begin to read again. And that's James's best-selling book on Harry Potter
Bravo, James.
Yeah, Repotting Harry Potter, Professor's book-by-book guide for the serious rereader. That's my takeaway too from Cursed Child is if you want the 8th Harry Potter novel, read Philosopher's Stone. The first is just continue to cycle through that and come to a fresher and more profound appreciation of the book by Rowling rather than, again, Deathly Hallows on Ice. This exploitation fan servicing piece that's oh well. There I've shown myself as being a total book guy. Forget the play, forget the text.
We all knew that, John. So we've covered.
We know you're a bigot, John. We know you're
so we've covered exploitative, money-making showmanship over depth this week. What are we going to look at next week, John?
Well, first I want to say again, you found that Tiffany interview. And I thought that was Jack Thorne. And I don't know how many times and how many people I've pulled Thorne down on that point. So, Jack Thorne, if you're out there watching, because I'm sure you've got time to be watching this, or as somebody who knows Jack Thorne, please tell him that John Granger says, there's a puck lawn and forgive me a sinner. And John Tiffany, I won't make that mistake again. That's all on you, brother. Okay, our next step is another book that isn't Rowling's book.
Oh no, not another script, surely.
No, well, it's a screenplay. Let's read the Fantastic Beasts original screenplay. And what are you going to say about this, Nick?
So I'm going to stay where I was. Basically, Rowling's in her power period, so it's the reason why Sonia and Colin came, powerful people though they are, came to her cap in hand. I'm going to revisit that with the first Fantastic Beasts. But there is a little bit of a lake in there that I think you first spotted. And that's a child's toy hidden within the story.
I'm looking forward to hearing this, especially. I love it when people discover things that I've long forgotten that I supposedly came up with. I'm going to be speaking about the expression that Rowling attributes to Steve Close about how they took Rowling's screenplay and rewrote it into this original screenplay, which is not her screenplay, which is the process of fitting the woman to the dress.
Yeah.
Now, to a feminist, that's an especially loaded phrase. And I'm going to talk about, I hope not as, this will all be my work. I spent a lot of time we had 40 posts at Hogwarts Professor about Fantastic Beasts. We went all in on Fantastic Beasts. And unfortunately, my part of it was trying to find the screenplay that Rowling wrote, actually the third one that she wrote, that was the shooting text for the movie before the cuts were made. And then by having to find out by interviews, by the actual cut scenes that were included with the DVD, with the books that were put out as promotional materials that were from Rowling's original text, that don't reflect scenes that are inside the movie, reflect something else. And then as things as bizarre as the Lego movie, which is a Warner Brothers property, and they also had the original text, that the movie had to come out the same day as the film did. So they didn't have Yates and Heyman's cuts.
Yeah.
So we had to recreate the text, and I'm going to talk about all those cut scenes and how it's, the original screenplay may be original in the sense that it isn't from another story. It's not a adaptation from a novel, but it is not the original screenplay that they shot the movie from. This shouldn't say J.K. Rowling across the top. It should say, again, just like the Cursed Child book, it should say the David Yates and David Heyman screenplay based on a story by J.K. Rowling.
Right, John. I'll look forward to that.
Am I worked up enough about this? I'm ready for this. Wow, this is. I'm sorry. I can't wait to get back to Lethal White is next, right after this. We can actually talk about a book that she wrote.
Let's get back to a book. Anyway, I'll see you tomorrow, John.
Yeah, I hope the sweltering heat gives you a break from that. Take care.